Let's play.
Welcome, everyone, to Wednesday Night Football. I'm your host, Jesse Waidler. I'm joined by Mr. Gabe over there. Gabe, how you doing?
Let's get it. We're doing great. Great weeks. So oh wait, I'm sorry.
That, that's
Um
that's how we're starting this. That's how we're starting
we had
this.
to start it. We had to start it somehow, but yeah. So let's get to the topics, Jesse, without wasting any time.
No, let's take a second on that, all right? Before we start our fourth episode of Wednesday Night
Hmm.
Football, we
Okay.
do have to address the elephant in the room. We're not going to talk much about the Cowboys and the Giants this week, but
No. They
hey,
didn't play each other this time.
your Cowboys won, so congratulations. The Giants.
I like to thank Tony Romo for the power of his announcing. You know, he helped us get through the Patriots that day.
Yeah, he did something out there. He was feeding you cue cards because there's no way the Cowboys are that confident to beat the Patriots on their own. But hey, you guys did it. So, with all
Oh
that
boy.
said, let's go ahead and kick off quarter one of this week's episode. And you know what that is? That's Monday Night Football. So, Monday Night Football, I thought it was going to be a slaughter. I was completely wrong. You have the Titans
Hmm.
going against the Bills. The Bills were the favored team for the matchup. The Titans, as we said last week, sure, they're first place in their division, but their division's weak, and we weren't so sold on them. And then, boom, the Titans win in the fourth quarter in a stunning fashion by 3 points, 34-31. Uh, I have to say it was a pretty exciting game, and I don't want to talk about the end of the game just yet. I don't want to talk about the final drive or the final play, but outside of that, the game reaction for me was I was intrigued. It was a great game through and through. There was no real big penalties that really like jaded the game for me. There was no poor play calling that made the game boring. It was just an entertaining game through and through between two juggernaut teams. Apparently, I loved it. What about you? What's your game reaction this week?
It was definitely shocking. You know, that's definitely the first reaction I would have. But the game, I would have to agree with you. It was just one of those like, you know, standard football games that was just entertaining to watch. It was like through and through. You had two, very good teams going at it, and the game was close. It was supposed to be kind of a blowout. You know, we kind of expected the Bills to just go out there, wipe the floor with the Titans, kind of like what they did with the Chiefs last Sunday night, but such wasn't the case. And we had a great football game where the defenses kind of both teams kind of fell apart in various sections of the games, and the offenses were allowed to shine bright in some spots and put up some numbers. And overall, yeah, very entertaining game. Was not really, at no point in the game was it did any team pull far enough ahead for it to be all right, this is over. It was just, it stayed, I
Yeah,
think, within like no more than 10 points throughout the whole game. So it was fun to watch.
it definitely was. And you got to put it on two players here. So let's talk about the Titans' key player, their number one guy, their running back, King
Mm.
Henry. Um, he had 20 carries, 143 yards. It's like 7.2 yards a carry. Um, and
76
he had,
yarder kind of helps with that.
yeah, he definitely does, right? And he had three TDs, right? So he really put the team on his back quite literally and just ran it the entire time, unstoppable. Uh, a running back like him, do you think he's going to continue this progress moving forward or not? Because when I look at his history, just real quick to preface, right? So this year, 162 attempts for 783 yards, 4.8 uh, yards on average per carry, and he has 16 receptions, right? Now it's more than his first two seasons in the league overall, right? But it's less on average right now than the seasons after those and before this one. So do you think that he's already peaked? Do you think he's on the decline? What do you think about King Henry?
I think he's still very much in his peak years. I don't think, it would be tough to put up that 2,000 yard number that he put up either last year or the year before that. But yeah, no, he's still, you can always expect Derrick Henry to put up at least 100 yards per game. And even on the games he doesn't, then it is what it is. He's, sometimes some people on the offensive line are hurt, and sometimes maybe they rely on him too much to run the ball, where they're not throwing to their receivers enough to give him a break. So a lot of factors can go into his running status, but overall, yeah, no, he's still a monster on the field, by far, still the best running back in the league. I don't think he's declining yet, and he's still, like you said, averaging over 100 yards per game, which I think is very, very strong for a running back, which in a 17 games week season like this, could maybe up that tally quite a bit. Maybe he will get over 2,000 yards because of that extra game. Who knows? But this will be interesting.
Yeah, I definitely think that he's the heart and soul of the Titans team. If he was to go down with an injury, the Titans might
They're
fall
done.
apart. Yeah, he
They might still
seems
win
to
the
be that.
division, but
True, true. But he seems to be that core element, kind of like this other player for the Bills. You got Josh Allen. Man needs no introduction this year, right? He had an MVP season or like season last year. Same this season. A lot of people are talking about. He goes 35 for 47. Once again, three TDs, 353 yards in passing. He did have an interception, but it was a tip ball that bounced into the air, and then the Titans made a great defensive play on it. They really rushed to that ball and got it before it hit the ground. So I really don't knock him too much for that, but an outstanding performance by him. Once again, which of these two players do you think is more valuable for their team? Do we have King Henry with the Titans or Josh Allen with the New York Bills?
I kind of have to go with Josh Allen on this one. I mean, they're both really great players, but Josh Allen, he's really just something else though. Like just an he's just a very up and coming quarterback who is pretty much almost already in his prime, and like he's young. He's got a lot of years to grow and flourish under, this head coach and this kind of new management that the Bills have, and they're starting to get these, numbers and receivers around him, and the line is looking strong. At the this Monday night wasn't their best outing, but in the long term, like Josh Allen, he's going to be their guy, and as long as he keeps playing like this, then you might see him in the league for a good 8 more years or so, at least, like playing at this high of a level. Derrick Henry, I mean, running backs are incredible. So Derrick Henry is also a rare one. But in terms of, I guess, longevity and, staying reliant to your team, I think Josh Allen will probably be there for the long haul.
Yeah, I have to agree with you there. And we're short on time for this quarter, so I'm going to go ahead and just talk real quick about that fourth quarter final play, right? So the
Right.
Bills have the ball. They are down by three. They're within field goal distance. They're right on the end zone line, pretty much. They're right there, red zone stuff. And they decide to do a QB sneak at the end of the game. It fails. They lose the game right there. That's it. Game over. A lot of people are knocking the Bills for that decision, and I can't say that I am. I have to appreciate the gutsiness of that call to trust your quarterback, to trust your offense. And I think it's really good on the Titans side because they didn't call any timeouts. Traditionally, teams would call a timeout expecting to get the ball back, not trusting their defense. But the guy stuck to his guns, called no timeouts. Pretty awesome. So I have to say, kudos on both sides. I think it was a spectacular finish to the game. I wish more games finished that way. So we're just about over time here, but I want to give you a chance to shout out on that and see how you feel about that final drive.
Yeah, I guess one thing I gotta say is that let's remember that that whole drive would not have even happened if the holding penalty on the kickoff return for a touchdown wasn't called. But unfortunately, it was
Yeah.
just a bit too obvious, so kind of had to happen. But yeah, gutsiness. I would agree with Sean McDermott in his play calling, but sometimes you just don't get it, and that's what happened to the Bills.
Yeah, it definitely did. But hey, there's always another week for them. So best of luck to them. I don't think either teams are moving in our playoff
Yeah, still a fantastic team.
positions.
So
Both fantastic teams now. So that's going to go ahead and wrap up quarter one. Let's go ahead and talk quarter two, Thursday night football. This is where we get into a little bit more analysis here. So we got two 3-3 teams facing off against each other. We got the Browns and the Broncos going head to head for this week. One of these teams is going to go positive, the other one obviously negative unless they tie somehow. Uh,
they could.
before I, I know, right? In this parody league right now, anything's possible. Before I hand it over to you to talk about your predictions for the game, I want to talk about one message a single player said right now. Okay. So Von Miller publicly announced that he had a message to whoever the tackle was on the Browns side. He said, "Listen, I'm going to kill him." Him likely being the quarterback, all right? The guy, Von Miller is confident. He's ready to roll. The defense of the Broncos has been good despite the Broncos' records here. Um, if you're Baker Mayfield, how do you feel about that message?
Well, if I'm Baker Mayfield, I feel like I gotta know whether or not I'm even playing. Right? He got hurt on
Yeah,
Sunday, so I don't know if he's gonna play. That's the thing with the Browns is they just lost so many players on Sunday. Both their starting running backs are gone. Baker's all banged up. JOK, one of their defensive players, is kind of hurt too. They drafted in the first or second round, and they're just injury ridden now. So this game is going to be a lot more closer than it should be. This should be an easy Browns win normally, but now that these players are hurt, and maybe Von Miller, he's got some merit to his talk. So watch out, whoever their left tackle is or one of their tackles, because Von Miller is probably going to come for the quarterback. And the Broncos are sensing blood right now because that's pretty much all the Browns see at the moment.
it's true. So the Browns, like you said, do have a plethora of injuries. I counted 18. I've seen some counts of 20. You go from site to site, they're all different, right?
So almost as many of the Giants injuries, like.
Almost as many as the Giants. And so with that, Baker Mayfield was still announcing that he was going to play, uh, despite the extent of the shoulder injury that he's currently undergoing. He's confident that he's going to play. We'll see. But let me just talk about these Browns injuries here. I'm just going to rattle off some names since you opened that can of worms. Okay, ready?
Right, go ahead.
OBJ, OBJ, Chubb, Clowney, Conklin, Garrett, Green, Jackson, Mayfield, McDowell, McKinley, Newsome, Joku, Smith, Treader, Ward, Williams, Willis, Wilson. I even got them in alphabetical order for you.
So that's
All
a
of
lot
these.
on both sides of the ball.
It
Like it's not
is. It
even just
is.
offense, but it's the defense. So the thing with the defense though is like I don't know if that's gonna be as bad as the offense, like of a hindrance, because Denver's offense has just been ugly the past few games. Like Teddy
It has.
Bridgewater has not been himself. Um, everyone's talking about, oh, Denver's 3-0 record was a fluke because of who they played. And I mean, I guess there is some merit to it, but I guess this will be a game where Denver can really prove whether or not they're showing up or showing out. And, you got to take advantage of a defense that's as injury ridden as the Browns to show that, like, hey, people should at least take you somewhat seriously, that you are a decent team in the league and can maybe contend for a wild card spot in the playoffs, because this game is kind of your last chance. The Browns, once they get their players back, I think they can recover and start piling up them wins. But the Broncos, this might be like a ride or die game in week 7 here. What about you?
So, yeah, I'm totally with you on that. And I got some numbers for you as always, right?
All right, go ahead.
But I have to say, you're talking about the Broncos seizing the opportunity of injuries, right? The Broncos quarterback is also kind of banged up right now. Teddy
Mm-hmm.
Bridgewater is not healthy right now. He's got the injury bug is plaguing him as well. So this could be a very low scoring affair where you have both teams' offenses really injured. And low scoring affair games tend to favor the Broncos. So let's
Mm.
talk about these teams walking in this game. So 3-3 is a pretty, what does that mean record? Does it mean that they're good? Does it mean that they're bad, average? What does 3-3 mean? So here's how you figure that out. Okay. So let's talk about the Browns. So obviously 3-3, right? They face the Chiefs, Texans, Bears, Vikings, Chargers, and Cardinals. Okay. The average record of the teams they face right now is 20 and 16, not average, but cumulative record there. Okay. 20 wins, 16 losses. The Browns went 3-3 against that winning record team compilation. That's not too bad. Okay. By that, they're not winning by big numbers typically. Um, they win by or they lose by 4 against the Chiefs. They win by 10 against the Texans. They win by 20, which is a big game against the Bears. And then they win again by 7 to the Vikings. And now they've lost their last two. They dropped it 5 to the Cardinals in that big shootout game. And then in the Cardinals, they just got hammered by 23. That was just a terrible loss on their part. Cardinals are an undefeated team. So, still overall, they're 3-3 against a rather strong, I would say, schedule. Not the hardest schedule, but definitely one to respect. And they're positive by 5 points in this affair. In all of these games at 3-3, they still have a better PA than or not PA, but points earned versus points allowed. Broncos, okay, totally different type of 3-3 here. First three games they face the Giants, Jaguars, Jets. Between those three teams, they are 3-14. Okay, not really good teams, but they win them by a lot of points. They win by 50 points. That's pretty impressive, right?
Mm.
They won those games, but then these next three teams they face: Ravens, Steelers, Raiders. 5-1, 3-3, 4-2 teams. They lose by a cumulative total of 34 points. Still, that means they're positive by 16 points in these three affairs. So they're beating the teams they need to beat. But when they're facing a team that's slightly competitive, as you mentioned, they're losing here. So when you take those numbers and you take that into account in these histories, you see two different teams, one that plays close games to teams of varying different degrees of difficulty, and then another team that just seems to blow out those that they can beat and then just crumble to those they are strong competition. So who walks out of this? What's your prediction?
I mean, you bring up a lot of good points. So I do think the Browns have, a more legitimate shot, just because of the quality of opponents they faced and how well they've stacked up against that quality of opponents. It really is going to come down to who's going to be playing that game and how, much of the workload they're going to get and how well they're going to do pretty much. So it's a very, a lot of factors are going into here, but I think I want to stick with the Browns on this one. I don't think the Broncos are going to, measure up as well as some people might be thinking. I do think it'll be a close affair. It might be what the Eagles and Bucks were last week, where it was pretty close there until the end. But I still think the Browns, this is going to be a game for them to kind of right that ship and start heading towards the second half of the season with with a good victory.
All right. I'm actually going to counterpick you here. I'm going to go with the Broncos. I'm going to go with the Broncos by no more than a touchdown here. I think it's going to be a close game. I think this is a rebound for the Broncos.
Right.
And I know I've got the Browns in my playoff predictions right now, but I just think it's going to take them time to understand how to play football with the injuries they have. So I think that's going to go ahead, wrap up quarter two. If you'll stand by, join us for our halftime show. All right, welcome everyone to this week's halftime show. I'm your host, Jesse Waidler, and today I'm joined by Brian Perio. Brian is a prior coach of the Aza Gold softball team out of Oklahoma City. That's where they're headquartered. He had done that for quite a few years, and he's joining us today to talk about his experiences and maybe shed some light on some of the misnomers or misconceptions about sports. So welcome, Brian. Thanks for joining us today.
Good evening. How are you?
I'm doing awesome. I'm excited to talk with you about this. I think these are youth sports. Once again, as I said last week, is a really good program for children to get involved with. And while it's downtrending now, it's great to be able to do these interviews to provide some highlights to the program. And so I just want to ask you, hey, as a coach, right? I've never been a coach for a youth program. What is it like to be a coach of youth sports? What's the down and dirty?
It's quite a rewarding experience. Inside the lines is what I used to say. You get
Okay.
to put a positive effect in mentoring and helping, in my case, young ladies advance in their careers, advance in their personalities, build self-confidence, learn how to win, and most importantly, learn how to lose and benefit from each subject. As I was taught years ago, there's no such thing as losing. It's all life experiences, and that's what you try to teach a young lady or a young man. I did do young men very early in life, but the level that I coached in softball was young ladies that were recruited to schools like Notre Dame, Rutgers, Yale, LSU, Stanford. So
That's really awesome. So that's a pretty diverse thing, and it seems like you had a large impact upon their lives moving forward, and the program did as well. And so, with that being said, what is it beyond just getting into Rutgers and all that? What does the sports programs and youth sports in general help with children's development or young teens development?
I think it gives a lot, depending on the economics and the social aspect of the child's life,
Mhm.
but it provides team unity, number one. I think it builds their own camaraderie and their own self-esteem. I do think it teaches a lot of life lessons. I think the problem that sometimes occurs is it's outside the lines with, with parents get involved. No disrespect, I was a parent too, and I made my own mistakes in trying to help my own daughters. But what I'm saying to you is, inside the lines as a coach, it was something I valued. I would actually go back and do it again now that I have grandchildren. But it was a lot of fun, and the most important thing is, I to this day I still get young ladies who thank me for helping them get into college and teaching them life lessons. So it was a quite rewarding experience.
I'm glad to hear that. That's awesome. And and so with everyone getting involved in this program, you often hear a lot of misconceptions or misnomers about joining into youth leagues, what it entails, or some negative aspects of it that aren't true, but word flies around. What is a misconception that you've encountered that you know not to be true, having been a coach in youth league sports?
I think some of the misnomers are that, well, it all depends on your love of helping people. If you really, you want to pay it forward, I think the misconceptions are, it's very time consuming. Parents are brutal to deal with. The children can be nasty and disrespectful. And I really didn't find that. I had a few parents that, we had to set what we called, player, parent, coach agreement. Basically said if there was a disagreement, the way we coached a specific game, they had to wait 24 hours till after the tournament was over. And most people would abide by that. So I find a lot of the misnomers that, coaching is tough, coaching is disrespectful. There were rules, I was coaching young ladies there when they went to warm up and do their calisthenics and stuff. We stood to the side. We had a young lady to help them, let them get through their stretching and everything. It's just it's common decency, common respect. And I had a lot of fun. I would go back and do it again. It was some of the best years of my life.
That's awesome to hear. And so then, if this was some of the best experiences of your life, and it sounds like for these girls as well, what is it that people can do to better support youth sports, in your opinion? Is it involvement? Is it financial assistance? What is it?
Uh, at the time, I was a successful businessman. I was able to sponsor a lot of young children that didn't have that opportunity. Every year, I sponsored quite a few ladies. There was a very talented young lady that played for Rutgers. Her name was Michaelin. I sponsored her a couple of years. And to this day, I can't tell you the gratitude and thanks I get from her. I have a parent that I helped a child get a full-blown education out of Moravia. And now she's on a boat somewhere in the Atlantic Ocean doing tremendous with Oceanic. And, I think parents just have to realize there's a great book out there that said, Let Them Play. And parents should read that book. The biggest misconception, we'll go back a little bit what you asked, not with youth sports, but what it brings. The ability that, especially in all sports, whether male or female, it brings the child an opportunity to a better education. My players, instead of maybe having to, and these are all great schools, going to Eastern Connecticut or a community school, were able to get into schools like UMass, UConn, Rutgers, St. John's. I placed 2 girls in St. John's, and they were able to, instead of going to a SUNY school, they got accepted to St. John's. And that was because of their ability to play softball. And that's what it is. So if you're going to look at youth sports, look at it as a ticket to a better education for your child. You're putting them in a better circle of life. Children that, maybe doctors, lawyers, agents, whatever. So that was my always goal. To said, biggest misconception, everybody wanted to win every tournament. I used to say to them, if you want a $4 trophy, I'll go out and buy it. If you want to see your daughter excel and become a better person in life, that's what I'm here to coach. And that's where I think coaching needs to be, on the experience for the child, not the experience for the parent.
All right. Well, I appreciate it, Brian. I think that's an outstanding perspective to have, and I hope more people can join us with that perspective. So thank you for your time and your interesting experience that you bring with you to our show. I will have to say that we're going to have to cut it a little short today, But thank you. And I hope to have you on the show again. So have a great day.
Bye-bye.
Welcome back. Quarter 3. Here we are. And so we're mixing things up a little bit this week. Gabe, I hope you're ready for this. So typically in the third quarter, we do a player spotlight, right? We talked about quarterbacks. We talked about linebackers. We talked about kickers, because kickers are people. But this time, hey, we're going to change it up. Instead of telling me who you're trying to sell me on, this is how it's going to work. You're going to provide all the information, all these cool snippets on why this person's spectacular. And then at the end of it all, you're not going to say the person. I'm going to have to guess it, right? So let's say we were talking about quarterbacks. You tell me that they've won the most Super Bowls in the league and that they're amazing and that they have a supermodel for a wife and all these great things. At the end, I would have to guess Tom Brady, right? If I don't, and I get it wrong, and then you guess mine, right? You'd be the winner of this quarter. And in that case, I will have to promote the Cowboys at the end of this episode today for a substantial period of time to talk about how they are. I'm not even going to say great they are right now. How they are, okay? But if I win overall today, then you got to promote the New York Giants at the end of the show and talk about how great they are, like you tried to do at the beginning of the show. If we tie off, then we have to both appreciate the Lord and Savior of football, Tom Brady, begrudgingly. All right, man?
Oh, boy.
So with that said, I will go ahead and lead this off to lead by example here. Okay. So you ready for this?
All right. I can't wait to see how wrongly I prepared by listening to your speech first.
All right. So we're doing head coaches for everyone this week. Coaching is a very important position within football. It's completely overlooked when we talk about positions, but it's understated about the depth that a coach has an impact. So I want to talk about one guy here. And this guy started off actually as a wide receiver. Okay. In Ohio, they played for about 3 years. They had 39 receptions, not too bad, 312 yards they gained during their career in college. So, you know, it's nice to see that they actually played football and they understood football prior to stepping into coaching. And then from there, they actually had a lineage of football too, okay? Their grandfather was the head coach of the New York Giants, okay? So their grandfather was the head coach of the New York Giants from 1976 to 1978. And when you hear a short tenure like that, that usually means they didn't do a good job. But hey, they went 14 for 23 before the Giants moved on and picked yet another head coach in the 1970s. It was kind of a troubling year for the Giants, or decade for the Giants. But hey, let's talk about this coach. So this coach hasn't been in the league too long. They've been in since 2017. And they actually beat the team that their grandfather was the head coach of, the New York Giants, by an impressive 51-17. Okay. Throughout the duration of this coach's career, they've gone 46-22. And they've never had a losing record. And here's the cherry on the top to help you out here. They joined in 2017 at the age of 30, okay, being the youngest coach ever of modern football. That right there, I have to say, is why I've highlighted this person. Because if you walk into the league and had tutelage under both Jay and John Gruden, okay, Jay and John Gruden, they started off as a coach, as a wide receiver coach for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They transitioned around a little bit after that before becoming a head coach themselves. They were coaching on the Washington football team, or Redskins at the time, I believe, if I remember correctly. And then before transitioning to head coach for a team. So with all that being said, they're a phenomenal coach. They've got a great mind about them. I think they've had a great impact since joining the league, and I think they have a bright future ahead of them. And I think that they've taken what their grandfather did and really propelled it forward with lessons learned on how to handle the stress of being a head coach in the NFL. So that right there is why I put this person on Spotlight. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to you. You get 30 seconds to think about it before you can name your coach.
Oh boy. All right. So my first guess is it's the only one I can think of that fits some of the descriptions. Is it Sean McVay?
Oh, you got him. You got him. You got him. You got him.
I got
Well
Sean
done.
McVay.
Well
Sweet.
done.
I didn't know
thought,
any of that about his wide receiver and Ohio College and Giants grandfather and all that. Like I didn't know any of that. But then once you said like 2017 youngest coach and then like the record out was like, Sean McVay's had a great record since entering the league and he joined around that time. I'll give it a shot.
all right, man. So that means you're not going to be talking about the Giants today. So congratulations on that. But you have to stop us from talking about the Lord and Savior Tom Brady.
Yeah, no,
So,
I would much rather you gush on the Cowboys like, you tend to do on a weekly basis.
But
But
you have 3 minutes.
So my description is definitely not going to be as broad or, as lore filled as yours, but we're just going to get right into it. So this coach, he's been around in the league for quite some time now. Still doing his thing, still pretty relevant in the scheme of things. So throughout his entire stint, which for a little hint has been for at least 5 years with his team, he's had a winning record in all of his seasons but one, and he's had 10-win seasons in 62% of his tenure for this team. 62% of all the seasons he's been there. He's had 10-win seasons 62% of the time. They've made the playoffs on multiple occasions under this coach, and only once did they get beaten, like one and done in the playoffs. Every other time they either win one and lose one or win and kept going. It's a process, but only one season where they went to the playoffs and lost it. He also tends to have a great on-field presence. He's very professional talking in the conference room. He doesn't have any off-field drama going off about him. He's just kind of there, enjoying the moment. And I tend to think that, this coaches and this team overall, I don't know if this relates to the coach, but their draft history tends to be pretty good as well. They stick with the guys that they draft in the first and second rounds of their drafts. And they've been with the teams for the past couple of years, their top few picks, and they're still making numbers, whether it's receivers or quarterbacks or linemen. They tend that they're choosing. And he also has a Super Bowl title with this team. So that is my 5th hint. So I got nothing else about this coach and this team, but what do you think, sir?
So you only gave me 2 minutes there of stuff. So
and and he's only been with one team for his entire time. So there's another.
Okay, I think I know who this is. I think I know who this is now.
All right, you can take like the minute 15 or extra elapsed time if you need, but
all the people listening right now, I'm sure are shouting at their screens right now, like, I know who it is. I know who it is. And I think I know it. I'm pretty confident. I don't want to talk about the Cowboys today. So
do you only get one guess?
One guess.
I assume you get multiple. Oh, okay. I didn't know.
One guess. Oof. One guess. Because I'm not a Cowboys fan. I don't need to repeat losses. All right. I'm going to go with Pete Carroll.
That is incorrect, actually. I chose John Harbaugh from the Baltimore Ravens.
Oh my God. Oh no.
I guess I should have said like his starting year, like 2008, I believe it was. Because you mentioned Sean McVay's starting year. So I guess that would that have given it away, you think, if I said 2008 for when he started? But
it would have helped.
I know I didn't have the greatest hints, but
fine. You just wanted me to talk about.
Hey, it is what it is for a first week. Now I know the lore that you go into, so I'll be better prepared for whatever position you do next week.
Yeah, I'll be better prepared for whatever Cowboys player you pick next week.
Oh.
All right, man. So don't worry. we'll talk about your Cowboys at the end of this, but we've
All
got
right.
better and bigger things to talk about right now. So let's go ahead, call that quarter four. Here we go. Okay, so fourth quarter, we always have this dialogue conversation, right? We always talk about a topic that either has a lot of history to it or something that's maybe a little controversial. So we're definitely erring towards controversial today, right? So here's my question to you. And I'm going to let you putter a little bit before I start giving examples.
Mm.
Should off-field drama, right? Off-field drama, meaning stuff that happens when they're not playing football, should that affect players' chances of being in the Hall of Fame or in other accolades like rings of honor? Or does on-field presence and performance matter more? Which of those two should really have the ultimate say on a player entering into those accolades? Or coach?
I say it's their on-field performance, but there's an extent, in my opinion. It's tough because there's like, depending on who you ask, there's a lot of players that are currently in like the Hall of Fame that you may think. I don't know if I could think of any examples off the top of my head. I guess like maybe like Ray Lewis is the first one that comes to mind. I'm not sure, that have like done stuff in the past, like at least a little bit of what they've done. Like they're not exactly like clean sheet people, if you know
Sure.
what I mean. But you also can't help but notice or recognize just how impressive they were on the football field. That's just something, you know, I feel like first and foremost, that's how you got to base whether or not they're even eligible to be in the Hall of Fame in the first place, is how they performed on the field throughout their career. Like, just forget anything related to off-field drama or, any of that nonsense. For them to even be eligible to even be in like the voting consideration for the Hall of Fame, it's 100% their on-field performance, like what they did, how many points they scored as a quarterback or receiver, like, how many like, game-saving like plays, tackles, interceptions, like whatever position you played and however well you played it. It's that performance that gets you recognized and, to even be considered to be eligible. That all comes first before any of that off-field drama. Now, of course, once, a player of that caliber is considered, and then if this player so happens to, I don't know, like been accused of some sort of assault or something like that. I don't know. There's a bunch of different crimes that you can label. Then I guess there's a question of like, is it like there's a severity level, and I guess that's maybe sensitive to some people to talk about, like all crimes are should be judged equally or whatever, but maybe that's not necessarily the case. I don't know if it's my right to talk about that, but I do definitely think when it comes to considering for Hall of Fame, on field 100% of the time outweighs it.
Yeah, I think it really comes down to what you view players as. Are they athletes or are they role models? If you view players as role models, then you 100% would say their character is what makes them worthy of recognition. If you view them as athletes, you're going to lean with, well, statistically, they were the best performing player on the field they were in, blah, 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 blah. And there's plenty of examples throughout history. You talked about some examples, right? You have pulling up some shortage. So I'll give you some, okay?
Mm.
And then I want you to tell me if you would consider them for a accolade, or if you say that their off-field shenanigans would remove them from that accolade in your eyes, okay? So first one here is the most pressing and what brings this topic up today, okay? John Gruden, okay? John Gruden removed from the Ring of Honor for the Buccaneers, right? Because he won a Super Bowl with them, the first Super Bowl they ever had. The coach, obviously, a lot of email traffic disparaging the league, utilizing some offensive terminology and terms. In your opinion, role model or athlete? What are we talking here?
So, I mean, I guess after all that, it's hard to consider John Gruden as a role model like at all, because that's just something you don't do. But I remember watching a live stream of some people talking about football, and they brought up the whole John Gruden, shenanigans, and they mentioned how, like, yeah, the Bucks removed him from the Ring of Honor, but he was, placed in the Ring of Honor for the Bucks before any of this whole email drama like occurred. So it's like, did the Bucks really have, I guess, I mean, they could have done it and they did do it obviously, but like, you know, was it in their, like, did they really have to go out of the way to take him out of their Ring of Honor, even though like his name is tainted now? It's not like his legacy with that team and what he did is still like, he helped him win a Super Bowl, I believe, but he was around for
Yeah.
that. But
Yeah. So what's your stance then? Would you say keep him in accolades, or do you think his off-field shenanigans has removed him from those accolades? We got a few more to go through. So what's your say?
Yeah, I know that's a tough one to answer. I guess for time's sake, I guess I would have to remove him, but
Okay.
that's a tough one to do. I can't really give a positive
All of
confident
these are
answer on
tough.
that.
All of these are tough. Okay, man.
I know.
Ready for the next? We're gonna blitz through these. Okay. Next one here. Lawrence Taylor, Hall of Fame linebacker for the New York Giants, right? Considered the greatest defensive player of all time, and was the only defensive player to earn MVP of the NFL. Okay. So he had a lot of trouble with drugs during his playing time and after his playing time. He had an incident with an underage girl, and which he confessed to guilty on, and he had many accounts of DUIs. Lawrence Taylor, keep him in the Hall of Fame or remove him?
I would probably say keep him. I mean, I don't want to be like the guy where it's like, oh, present day situations or whatever, but like, a lot of these are tough. Like, it's hard to say. Like, I don't want to appear as controversial, but
sure. All right. Well,
whatever.
like I said, I'm gonna blitz through these. You don't have to explain them all. Don't worry. Michael Vick, not in the Hall of Fame right now, to my knowledge. Convicted of dogfighting rings, hosting those, but considered one of the greatest mobile quarterbacks ever. Do you just think he deserves accolades, or say no based on his events? Speed round, man. Speed round.
I know these are just hard to think. Why do you got to let me make the decisions?
Because I'm the host.
I guess so. I guess yeah. I'd throw him in there. He's a good player, but
All right. I got two left for you. Okay. Walter Payton. Now, Walter Payton, known as Walter Payton Man of the Year Award, right? It's an accolade that soldiers get for contributions to society. He's a Hall of Fame running back, performed really well in the field. He's been known to lie about his age. He actually, for a long time, said he was a year younger than he was when he was competing for the Heisman. And he accidentally shot a man with his firearm before. Keep, remove.
Well, considering the NFL puts his name on literally the award that defines character, you got to keep him in. Like, I can't even like say anything about it.
Okay.
That's just what it is.
Last one, Jerry Jones. I don't know if you know who he is, but he's the owner
no
of
clue.
kind of a mediocre franchise. But he's been charged $125,000 in fines for speaking out against NFL officials and NFL policies. Remove him from the Hall of Fame because he's a Hall of Famer, or not?
I'd keep him. I think that's the least of everyone we've talked about so far, like least offensive. That's not even biased. Like, I just like speaking out, and I don't know. So depends on what he said. I don't know what he said though.
All right. So what I'm getting at here is it's really hard to say, on a case by case basis. You have to really like delve into this, and it's hard to just brushstroke all over all of these players' careers and say like, yeah, I totally work in Hall of Fame. And maybe it's the recency of John Gruden that you say would remove him from those accolades, but it's our distance from the events that maybe keeps other players in and keeps them safe. And for me, it would be a tear-breaking or, just a crushing day to hear that Lawrence Taylor's removed from the Hall of Fame despite being the greatest defensive player of all time because of, off-field shenanigans. And so I really wish that we could just separate the two, but I don't think that's possible. And I know I'm way over time in this quarter, But I think it's really good to draw attention to this, because you can't just be so off the cuff about a player and their accolades when it's such a complex um, dynamic between off and on field, where we now view these players as athletes and role models.
I think if anything, this segment, I think this proved more than anything like how like just dumb it is to judge something like by its cover like immediately. Like you said their names, you said what they're great at, you said like their mishaps, like what they've done, and then I had like 5 seconds to make a decision. You can't just like you can't make a judgment based on that. You have to like do more research for yourself and like ultimately come to a conclusion on your own, which whichever way you side, ultimately I guess it doesn't matter that much because it's what the higher ups decide their fate is going to be. That's what ends up happening. But this was just a good round in controversy and the magnitude of today's climate versus decades ago what they've had to face.
Right. And I think if anything, the NFL, if they want to broach the subject, they're very good about creating rules. Maybe they should put this in writing on what the NFL's code of conduct policies really are as an overlapping procedure for accolades. I think that way players understand what they are and what they're held to. So I think that's going to go ahead, wrap up quarter four for this. I appreciate you sitting on the hot seat for that. It wasn't easy for you. I wouldn't want to be there, but you did it, man. You did awesome. So congratulations to you there. But we're going to go ahead, get into this overtime, and we're going to go ahead and talk about our playoff predictions. Once again, right down there, there's last week's playoff predictions. And I'm going to go ahead and let you kick this off because I only have one change. What do you got for me, man?
I have one change too, and it's not the 49ers. They're still winning the division this year.
I don't know how you lie to yourself every night.
So my only change is I'm actually going to go down to the AFC, and I'm swapping the Browns and the Ravens. I think the Ravens look superhuman now. They just annihilated the Chargers, and the Browns are injury ridden, like we've talked about, for the Thursday Night Football segment. The Ravens look hot right now, and if they can beat a team that good that badly, they've done that with the Chiefs. I mean, they beat a close one. Anyways, Ravens are winning the division. Browns still got a solid wild card spot. I need another week or two to maybe replace them with the Bengals or whichever, but that's my only change. NFC, Cowboys are still going to win. Packers are still going to win. Full NFC West playoff route with the 49ers up top. And yeah, let's get it. What do you got?
Well, I'm not going to be that original then, apparently, because once again, I had the Browns, winning their division. But like you said, based on what the Ravens have been able to do, both on a coaching side, as you highlighted today, as well as with their quarterback play, and just honestly defensively as well, they're playing some complete football. You can't ignore it any longer. So Ravens replacing the Browns, Browns taking their spot in the wild card round. And then, maybe over there, our editor can do you some justice and remove those 49ers, because I think you're becoming delusional at this point, man. But
no. They're right. Going to regroup from this bye week.
So that's going to go ahead and wrap up this week's Wednesday Night Football. I will say that I've got to go ahead and honor my promise here and give you 30 seconds or so talking about your Cowboys and what I enjoy about them, what makes them so great. So, you have to say, they are not America's football team, but they are...
That wasn't in the script.
They are a historically important team. They have so many Hall of Famers. If you go into the Hall of Fame football website, there's actually 2 pages of just Cowboys players that are in the Hall of Fame, all the way from Bob Lilly to Landry to Troy Aikman. I mean, the list can go on both sides of the ball. You had a very impressive, dominant decade in the 90s, and then you also had the years of Roger Staubach. The Cowboys put up heroes, not just stars. And it's really great to see that. And now I know that they've been meddling these last few years, but maybe that Dak Prescott can assert himself as the new hero that Dallas is, and he could maybe be the Captain Falcon of NFL universe. So that's what I'm going to say there. That hurt. Every single moment of that hurt.
I bet. Yeah, no. I don't want
But
to talk
there you
about
are.
that. Your Giants like that next week.
So you will, though. I promise you, you will. All
Oh
right.
boy.
So everyone, that wraps up our show today. Thank you for joining us. Gabe, do you have any last words?
Nah, just hope you enjoyed the show, and if you enjoy gaming as well, be sure to check out the Sunday Night Gaming playlist as well after this show.
All right. Then there's your plug. Have a great night.
Peace.